Good day, everyone. Welcome to the Exploring the Role of Educators to Prevent Sexual Exploitation and Promote Healthy Masculinities. Today, we're going to be exploring the wrprevent.ca educational resource. And my name is Taylor Dimitrov. My pronouns are he and him. Let's get started. We like to start the session today with just a land acknowledgement. It's just super important to acknowledge the land that we are on, and that's working with Indigenous communities across Canada, across Turtle Island. And I'm happy to report that I'm coming to you today from Treaty 1 territory, and it's really exciting to be here and to do this webinar for you folks. It's just really great to do some amazing work, and it's just such an honor to be on the land that we are on today. So thank you. A little bit of a content warning and support resources for you folks. We just want to talk about that. There are resources out there. Some of the things that we're going to be talking about today might just bring up some emotions. So if you are in need of support, or you need some support for other folks as well, these are some resources that you can use. So we have Kids Help Phone, the Assaulted Women's Helpline, Male Identified Survivors, LGBTQ Youth Line, and then we have Canada-wide resources as well. So all those are there for you. Please feel free to take a screenshot or save this as well. So today we're going to be covering a little bit about White Ribbon and who we are. We're going to be defining and understanding sexual exploitation and sex trafficking, the role of educators in the prevention of sexual exploitation, and exploring White Ribbon's new educational resource for elementary and secondary educators, which is the wrprevent.ca. So yeah, really looking forward to this. Let's get into it some more. So the learning objectives, we're really hoping to increase the capacity in those prevention skills of members of school communities in addressing sexual exploitation, sex trafficking, and understanding its connection to healthy masculinities. We also want to increase awareness and prevention skills of sexual exploitation, sex trafficking of children and youth for parents and adult allies as well. Destigmatization of sexual exploitation and sex trafficking to encourage reporting, increased awareness of the impact of sexual exploitation and sex trafficking in Ontario, and then increased preparedness of male identified students to practice healthy masculinities and how to be a good role model to boys and young men. So first things first, we want to talk about White Ribbon and who we are. So White Ribbon engages men and boys in the prevention of gender-based violence by promoting equity and transforming social norms. So we're committed to supporting men and boys to realize their potential to be part of the solution to end gender-based violence. So gender-based violence, we're going to be talking a lot about that today too. And it stems from different areas, from normalizing just jokes, like kind of that locker room talk, to these extreme forms, which you kind of see on the screen today too. The Montreal Massacre at École Polytechnique in 1989, where 14 women were murdered in the engineering faculty there. And then also in 2018, there's the Toronto van attack as well. So these are extreme forms of violence. But like I was saying, like there's other forms of violence that just starts with normalizing certain jokes and gender expectations and gender roles that that can lead to things like this as well. So we're going to talk about that, but 2 years after the massacre at École Polytechnique, White Ribbon was founded in 1991. So so there's just some little information for you here. What's really great is that White Ribbon has a strength-based approach. So really it's all about promoting that dialogue, encouraging emotional literacy. It's a really non-violence focused workplace and organization, and then focus on prevention and allyship. So it's really great. And I'll just speak for myself that it's within like the ins and outs. It really is strength based. It's even our approaches and just how we conduct our work, and how we communicate with each other as teammates. Everything is really strength based. So it's really great. So we also want to talk quick about the power of partnerships with educational institutions. So White Ribbon does have a long-standing partnerships with Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario and the Ontario Secondary School Teachers Federation in creating educational tools and capacity building of educators to prevent gender-based violence. There's a crucial role of educators to prevent all forms of gender-based violence and encourage boys and young men to promote healthy masculinities. So let's get into it. So let's define and really understand sexual exploitation and sex trafficking. So the key terms that we want to kind of go over is that first thing is child sexual exploitation. So that refers to situations where youth under the age of 18 are forced to exchange sexual acts or images for material items such as food, shelter, drugs, clothing, and non-material items such as protection, love, and belonging. Sexual exploitation includes all offenses related to child sexual abuse images, age of consent offenses, as well as prostitution under the age of 18. And then when we talk about sex trafficking, so it's the human trafficking for the purpose of sexual exploitation. And then human trafficking is the recruitment, transportation, harboring, and or exercising control, direction, or influence over the movements of a person in order to exploit that person, typically through sexual exploitation or forced labor. So human trafficking is a hidden crime and is an offense under Canada's Criminal Code and Immigration and Refugee Protection Act. So what does this look like in Ontario and in Canada? So the data, let's go through it. So approximately 2/3 of police reported human trafficking cases in Canada occur in Ontario. So the large majority is in Ontario. The average age of recruitment into sex trafficking is 13 years old. So 4 in 5, about 81% persons accused of trafficking from 2009 to 2018 have been men. 93% of victims are Canadian, and over 70% of human trafficking victims identified by police are under the age of 25. So what are the causes of sexual exploitation and sex trafficking? So there are a couple causes that we really wanted to talk about. The first one is ongoing impacts of colonization. So you'll see lots of images here on the screen about like the sickly soup, missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and 2S LGBTQ plus individuals as well. But there's one story here that I really want to share with you folks. It's a CBC article, which I've linked at the bottom. So I really recommend you reading the full story here. But Bridget Perrier's story really talks about how being born from an Anishinaabe mother and then being adopted into a non-Indigenous home really turned life into into leading into certain situations that really set the stage for human trafficking, sexual exploitation, sex trafficking. So you'll see that in her story that she talks about just being at the group home, and then a handful of the girls wanted to make some money because they needed money for which we'll talk about in the next slide. And she was really asking the question, well, how are we going to make some money? And it was all about meeting with older men and connecting with them and encouraging these sexual acts as well. So you'll see how like even the 60 scoop really impacted her life and how it really led to a life of sexual exploitation. So I definitely encourage you to read this article and check out her story because it is really impactful. The next cause would be economic inequality, which definitely leads to disparities. So as you can kind of see in the next picture here, is just traffickers prey on people in poverty. People really accept the work in hope of a better life. People accept work to help their families out of poverty. So, folks are living in poverty and then they're just trying to get out of it. Poverty can also sometimes drive parents to sell children or other family members into slavery. And poverty can drive people to become traffickers as well. So we can really see how those economic inequalities can really lead to things like this as well. And the last cause that we really want to talk about was that deep-rooted and entrenched patriarchy in society, which perpetuates male dominance and control over women's and girls' bodies. So you really see how a lot of these male-focused and male-oriented groups are just still overruling things and how women and girls can do and say and what they do with their bodies, and it's really harmful, and it's you see that it is really deeply rooted, and it still goes on to this day. So it's some things that it's important for us to talk about, and that's why we're doing the webinars that we do today. So thank you again for joining. This also leads to gender expectations, and so you see just these gender roles that come up, and that, you know, men and women are supposed to be certain ways, and that really fuels some of the things as well. So women are supposed to be non-aggressive, dependent, easily influenced, submissive, you know, gentle, sensitive, emotional, nurturing. And men are supposed to be aggressive and independent and dominant and taking control and not sensitive and analytical and blunt. It even comes into certain scenarios with workplaces where I was just chatting with my sister at work, and she was saying that like she can be a very dominant individual, and she likes to be a leader and take control of certain situations, but because she's a woman, it's looked at that she's you know, that she's being too aggressive, or that she's being too emotional, or that she's being too whatever. And so it's even those gender norms that are affecting her career and how she can advance and lead in her roles. So it's even things like that that really plays a role in that too. So let's talk about the most at risk and who's at risk for sexual exploitation and sex trafficking. So anyone can be at risk of being targeted for sex trafficking, regardless of age, gender, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, family history, housing situation, race, ancestry, religion, or geographic location. However, while being young and female is the number one risk factor for being targeted by sex traffickers, individuals belonging to these vulnerable groups have a higher risk than average of being targeted and exploited by sex traffickers. So we'll see a couple two sides, two lists here that these groups would be really at risk for being targeted by sex traffickers. So Indigenous women and girls, 2S LGBTQ identified youth, racialized individuals. I mean, the list goes on, right? Children, youth involved in the youth justice system, youth who are questioning the security and sense of belonging to the community, school, or family. So it's like those things that we talked about before of just that sense of belonging, trying to get out of poverty, patriarchy, the colonization, all these things kind of really play a factor into who's at risk. So let's talk about the tactics. So tactics used by traffickers and how they would get individuals involved in sex trafficking. So the first tactic is usually luring. So the initial contact can be made in person or online, through which traffickers begin to build trust and emotional ties with their targets. During this period, traffickers work to understand their victims' vulnerable points and leverage insecurities and needs for affection to make the victim dependent and thus far more vulnerable. Traffickers often prey on victims who are looking for attention, affection, the promise of a better life, a job opportunity, or to fit in. So it's, you know, once again, folks that are wanting that sense of belonging, wanting that better life. You know, these folks will use that to their advantage and reach out and say that these are things that I can offer you. So the next steps is usually grooming. So traffickers purposely fulfill the target's emotional, economic, and social needs, really in order to manipulate them and make them increasingly reliant or in debt to them as well. So traffickers pretend to be emotionally interested in their targets and even become their close friends or romantic partners. And then traffickers may purchase expensive items and gifts for victims, invite them to parties, trips, and provide drugs and alcohol. So really showering them with gifts and getting them involved in various activities and trips and parties and things like that to fill those needs, those emotional, economic, and social needs as well. So isolation is often a big part of it as well. So traffickers isolate their targets from their friends and families as a method of control. Eventually, victims will be likely isolated from people or areas that they're familiar with them. So they'll be moved to location, relocated to new cities, rural areas, or provinces, often with little or no contact with the outside world. So really removing them from things that they're familiar with and family and friends, and isolating them for sure. What then tends to happen is that there's manipulation methods. So financial pressures and owing debts. So, you know, after they're done showering them with all these gifts, it's really asking the victims to repay them for the gifts when, you know, they know that they can't. You know, so I did that for you. Now you need to do this for me. Leveraging the emotional bond that the victim has with the trafficker. So if you love me, you would do this for me. Emotional, physical abuse, and then learned dependence or helplessness. And then as well, there's often threats. So threats to disclose personal information or images. So I'll tell everyone or show everyone what you've done, and no one's going to love you anymore. Intimidation or threats to harm the victim or their loved ones. So if you don't do this, you'll force them to hurt your sister, friend, or pet. So threats are often made as well, to keep someone stuck in that tactic as well. So let's go through the signs. So what are the signs that someone might be sexually exploited? So let's walk through that right now. So someone might be defensive and aggressive to exhibiting feelings of fear, anxiety, depression, tension, or submissiveness. Someone might avoid eye contact, experience mood swings, have inconsistencies in their stories, and express anxious behavior regarding law enforcement. Things like skipping class and withdrawing from friends and activities that they used to really love or be close with. Being reported as chronically missing. So yeah, just not being there. Having sexualized content on their online profiles. So the various profile platforms that someone could have. And then being secretive or lying about their activities, or secretive about their boyfriend or new friend group that they have. Other things you might notice is that folks might have money or clothes and hair, nails done, hotel room keys, fake IDs that they can't really afford or explain why they would have that. Someone might have a new tattoo, especially if it's a boyfriend's name or oftentimes a symbol as well. Using drugs or alcohol that they cannot afford/explain. Talking a lot about Bitcoin, Airbnb, hotels, and parties. Exclusively taking rides like Ubers or taxis to moving around, having different cars picking them up all the time. And then also possessing multiple cell phones and often changing their phone numbers often as well. So what can educators do in the prevention of sexual exploitation? So the role of educators is really to provoke critical thought in discussing child sexual exploitation, sex trafficking, unpack that sexual exploitation, sex trafficking by exploring supporting concepts. So distinguishing between abusive and healthy relationships, so that's a really big one. Critically examining masculine culture and promoting nonviolence. Encouraging action, discussing online safety, and having those youth-led conversations, activities, and initiatives. So what we're really going to share with you today is that we have lots of resources for you folks to really help with some of this work. And I think it ties into that strength-based approach too, in showing, individuals of just like, is a really good concept, which is instead of scolding people on what not to do, it's really showing them like what they can do and how they can be supported and how they can be helped. So we're going to go through all these kind of resources and all these tips, which I think you'll find really interesting as well. So let's explore White Ribbon's new educational resource for educators, which is the wrprevent.ca, so wrprevent.ca. And this is what the home screen really looks like. So it's prevent. It's also translated into French. So you'll see as well that we're going to do a French webinar that will be online as well that you can check out. So that'll be completely in French as well. But we have prevent and prevenir. So a little bit about White Ribbon Prevent is that it was created in partnership with ETFO and then OSSTF in 2020. And it's funded by the Ministry of Education. It's really created to inspire and engage educators to enhance students' awareness of the issue, root causes, and prevention skills. So it was developed in consultation with diversity of community partners, including, you'll see on the screen there, Aurora Freedom, EGAL, CAP, Congress of Aboriginal Peoples, Kenora Sexual Assault Support Center. Lots of really great folks helped and were consultants on this project as well. What you'll see is that there's 9 lesson plans. So there's 8 lesson plans for secondary educators and 1 lesson plan for elementary, and they're available in both English and French. So these are the lesson plans that are available. So you'll see all the different topics there, which is really great, and you can move through them with your class. So what is child exploitation and sex trafficking? What is sex trafficking? How can I stay safe online? We really talk about those healthy relationships, things like consent as well, understanding consent at the bottom, bystander intervention, challenging unhealthy representation in media, creating healthier masculinities, ending rape culture and child exploitation together, and once again, consent. All these lesson plans are available in PowerPoint, in Google Slides, and then you'll see that you have like Word and PDF available as well for the slides, but also just like how to do the activities as well, which is really, really great. So those digital delivery guides they are also available. So it's really for you, and it's you can use it however you see fit, and we tried to make it as easy as possible for you to just kind of pick it up and go with it. So it's really great. If you would like, you can also there's also curriculum connections. So on the page that says lesson plans, there's also curriculum connection sheets. So this is just one screenshot of just one of the sheets, but it really shows you how it ties into the different curriculum. So that's really, really great. One of the pieces that I wanted to show you today too is just the Healthy Masculinities Lessons Plan. So I just want to show you a couple slides of one of those lesson plans. So we decided to show you the Healthy Masculinities one. So let's go into that. So to what degree do you think stereotype and traditional masculinity leads to women being treated like objects, homophobia, control over emotions, violence against girls, women, members of the 2S LGBTQ community? So this is a really great activity that you can do. You can place the X on each line to show your response. And we really have a discussion around this. There's even notes on the slides themselves, which is, inviting student feedback, how to have the discussions, everything in there. So I'm actually looking at the notes right now, which is great. Another slide is that you can do this another activity. So what are some traits that men may be pressured to display or be in order to consider to be a real man? Individually brainstorm a list of traits and share ideas with the class. So this is another one where you can use like a digital whiteboard to create a comprehensive list of terms that the class generates. So you can do this virtually, you can do this in person. This is another really great activity. And then one more that we want to show you too is just something for you to think about is how we can challenge the healthy expectations of masculinity and build healthy relationships between people of various gender identities. So this is just another activity, and it says right here in the notes that, slides 3 to 5 will help you prepare for your students for the lesson plan. So it's, before you go into this, like there's going to be prep work as well. And once again, all this is available online for you to check out and for you to download, use yourself. It's a really great tool. And this is just one of the lesson plans. This is lesson plan 6, as you can see on the screen there. But yeah, as I was mentioning, there's 9 in total, and they're both available in English and French. So there's a couple questions that we want to go with you, and if you wanted to reach out to us and get this information back to us, that's always great. It's just like, what has worked for you in the past in delivering healthy relationship, consent-based education in the classroom, and do you see this curriculum as complementary to what you're already doing? We also want to know, are educators interested in learning about more the White Ribbon resource, wrprevent.ca resource, and then also subsequent training that can be followed up as well. And do you believe that youth across gender identities would benefit from these lesson plans too? So if you have any questions, please let us know. We would love to hear from you. There's lots of ways that you can get in touch with us. So please do keep in touch. We have a survey monkey here that you can scan that and it'll take you right to the link. But please do follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Check out our website, wrprevent.ca. Definitely check out the resources, wrprevent.ca as well. And like I said, this has been great. So thank you so much for just attending this this quick virtual webinar. And if there's anything that you need from us, please let us know, because we would love to support. So thanks so much. Take care.